And forget the brain drain, because it is all about being hyper efficient. We talked to the author who last night won Business Book of the Year. Yep, it's all about the science of the brain, apparently. We're going to talk about that in a moment. You're with Business Today. Welcome in London. I'm Sally Bundock. We start, though, in Central America, where the trade war triggered by President Trump. Now, before we close, let's get some thoughts on how to get our brains operating at peak efficiency. That is the focus of the Business Book of the Year, announced just last night, right here in London. And this year's winner is Hyperefficient, published by Yellow Kite and written by Mithu Storoni, who I'm delighted to say joins me live this morning. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Have you had much sleep? I presume you had a late night celebrating.
I did. It was all worth it.
But because you're an expert in getting your brain to peak efficiency, you're coping with this very well. So just talk us through what's in your book.
Yeah, I mean, the way we work currently is modeled almost entirely on the kind of industrial era assembly line type working, where you kind of work continuously at the same pace, at the same rate. And, now that we are shifting, the work landscape is shifting to an era where we're using AI, as your last report just mentioned. We are working a lot more with the quality of our thoughts rather than just the quantity of what we are producing. We really need to think about what environment is best for the brain to flourish in, and the assembly line environment really isn't the right one. So in fact, the brain has got its inherent rhythms, and it has its own way of working, which is actually incompatible with the continuous sort of slog that we put the brain through in any standard job. So this book tells you what this new way of working is, and how if you work slightly differently, you can actually really produce better work rather than just produce quantities and quantities of work that maybe isn't as good as you'd like it to be.
So it's not about quantity, it's about quality, and it's about using your brain to get the best performance possible. But for those who are working on a production line, is this not relevant to them then, because they are doing a monotonous job? I mean, and there are plenty of people who are in those jobs for good reason.
Absolutely. No, at the moment, the production line template exists, and no matter what your job is, your brain will do better if, given that template, you make some tiny adjustments so that you allow your brains to still work rhythmically, to still work in a way that is very compatible with the way the brain naturally likes and wants to work.
So what sort of adjustments, just briefly, because we're intrigued, what kind of little adjustments can we make?
So the brain is, for instance, it's very rhythmic. So if you look at the kind of work you're doing in a typical day, as a little example, your creativity peaks first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening. You also have a sort of a 90-minute cycle where you can't force your attention to kind of stay constant for more than around 60 to 100 minutes, so around about 90 minutes. And if you work in a way that is a little bit like a sort of like a wave, so you work in really short intensities, where you have really, really intense bouts, so short duration, intense bouts, and then you kind of loosen up your pace and intensity of work, and you repeat that as a rhythmic cycle, you can actually get a lot more out of your brain, out of your mind, out of your work day, in fact, than working in a kind of standard flat line template. So within that template, you can kind of wax and wane according to your brain's own rhythms.
Okay. Well, it sounds really fascinating, and congratulations once again for winning the Business Book of the Year 2025. Mithu Storoni, thank you for getting up so early to talk to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hyper efficient. We all want to be that, don't we? Hyper efficient. Well, I hope your brain hasn't been too overloaded by this programme. Thank you so much for your company. Have a lovely day. I will see you soon.